The silver spacecraft of the Galactic Concord hung in Earth's orbit like a polished dagger. Inside the United Nations headquarters, Ambassador Tae-il smiled diplomatically as the alien delegation approached. The room was silent except for the soft hum of translation devices and the strange clicking sounds the aliens made when they breathed. "Humans," announced the tall, blue-skinned leader of the Concord. "I am High Emissary Vector. We invite you to join our peaceful federation of 37 species." General Jisoo Park watched the alien carefully. She had spent 20 years in Earth's military before becoming chief negotiator. Something about these aliens felt wrong to her. Their smiles never reached their eyes. Or what she thought were eyes. 4 glowing orbs arranged in a diamond pattern on their faces. Vector continued speaking, his translator device converting his clicks and whistles into smooth, almost musical English. The terms were presented with such confidence that many in the room seemed impressed. Humans would surrender 20% of their resources, dismantle military operations, and accept Concord oversight. In return, they would receive protection and guidance. Jisoo noticed how Vector never mentioned trade benefits or cultural exchange. The Concord wanted Earth's resources and nothing more. Behind her, she heard some of the UN representatives whispering nervously. The aliens had technology far beyond Earth's, at least the technology they had shown. "Thank you for your generous offer," Jisoo said when Vector finished. "However, these terms are unacceptable. We seek equal partnership, not servitude." The room went quiet. No one had expected such a direct rejection. Vector's appendages twitched in what the humans' translators identified as disbelief. The other, aliens in his delegation, clicked rapidly to each other. "Perhaps you misunderstand your position," Vector said slowly. "The Concord does not negotiate. You would be wise to reconsider." Jisoo stood, her posture relaxed but commanding. She had faced down threats before. Human threats, yes, but threats nonetheless. "Perhaps you misunderstand Earth's history. Those who threaten humanity rarely enjoy the outcome." Vector's skin changed color slightly, darkening to a deeper blue. He did not speak for several seconds. "We will return in 3 of your months for your final answer," he said at last. His delegation turned as one and left the chamber. After the Concord delegation departed, Admiral Sung-ho turned to Jisoo. "They'll be back with warships." "Yes," she nodded. "Activate Defense Protocol Omega." Sung-ho looked surprised. "Are you sure? That plan was made for worst-case scenarios." "This is the worst case," Jisoo said. "They never intended to welcome us as equals. They want our resources and our obedience. Did you notice how they avoided mentioning any other species in their Concord? I suspect we'd be slaves, not partners." Sung-ho nodded grimly and made a call on his secure device. Across Earth, hidden military installations began powering up. In orbit, satellites that appeared to be communication relays revealed hidden weapons systems. And beyond Mars, in the asteroid belt, mining operations suddenly changed to military production. Tae-il approached them, his face concerned. "The UN Security Council is split. Some nations want to accept the Concord's terms." "Tell them what we learned from our deep space monitoring," Jisoo instructed. "Show them the footage of what happened to the Rigelian system when they tried to negotiate better terms." "Will that be enough?" Tae-il asked. "It has to be," Jisoo replied. "We have 3 months to prepare Earth for war with an enemy that controls 37 worlds." That night, as Jisoo looked up at the stars from her apartment balcony, she wondered about those other species. Were they truly partners in the Concord or conquered peoples? Perhaps Earth could find allies among them. Her phone rang. It was Sung-ho. "The lunar base just picked up transmissions," he said, his voice tight with concern. "The Concord ship is talking to someone in our government. They're planning to bypass official channels and make deals with individual nations." Jisoo gripped the railing of her balcony. "Find out who. We can't let Earth be divided." "There's more," Sung-ho added. "We've detected small craft leaving their ship. They're sending something to Earth." "Spies? Assassins?" Jisoo asked. Or both, Sung-ho replied. The game has already started, Jisoo. They're not waiting 3 months. Jisoo took a deep breath. Then neither will we. Implement Phase 2 immediately. The war for Earth had begun, and most of humanity didn't even know it yet. 3 months passed quickly. Earth prepared in every way possible. Military bases on the moon were expanded. Defense systems were hidden throughout the solar system. Scientists worked day and night to improve Earth's weapons. Admiral Sunwoo sat in the command center beneath the Pacific Ocean, 500 meters below the surface. The room was large, with screens covering the walls showing different parts of the solar system. Officers worked quietly at their stations, their faces serious but calm. Admiral, we have detected energy signatures near Jupiter, reported Officer Jinho. Multiple ships dropping out of hyperspace. Sunwoo nodded. The Concorde fleet had arrived right on schedule. Show me. The main screen changed to show Jupiter's massive form. In front of the giant planet, small points of light appeared. First 10, then 50, then over 200 ships materialized. The conquered fleet was enormous, with vessels larger than anything humans had built. They brought more ships than we expected, said Commander Daejung, standing beside Sunwoo. Almost double our predictions. Sunwoo's face remained calm. Numbers don't win battles, position and strategy do. The communication system crackled to life. The face of a Concorde commander appeared on screen. His blue skin was darker than Vectar's, with more pronounced ridges around his 4 eyes. Primitive humans, the Concorde commander broadcast. Your defiance ends today. Surrender or be obliterated as an example to others. Everyone in the command center looked at Sunwoo. He stood slowly, straightened his uniform, and spoke clearly. 3 days later, in the ruins of the Concord Assembly Hall, representatives from 86 worlds gathered. Some were former Concord members. Others were species that had been hiding from Concord expansion. All had chosen to join what would come next. General Jisoo Park, who had first rejected the Concord's demands on Earth 2 years earlier, stood at the speaker's platform. Her uniform was crisp, but her face showed the exhaustion of the long campaign. I see before me a galaxy at a crossroads, she began. For too long, the Conquered ruled through fear and forced obedience. That era is over. The hall was silent as every species listened, translation devices converting her words into dozens of languages. We never wanted to be the galaxy's deadliest species, she said. We simply refused to be victims. Now we offer something the Concorde never did: genuine partnership. She explained the structure of the new Galactic Federation. Each world would have an equal vote. Resources would be shared fairly. Military power would be distributed, not centralized. And most importantly, any world could leave the Federation at any time if they chose to do so. The Conquered held worlds through force, Jisoo concluded. We will hold them through mutual benefit and respect. When the vote was taken, all 86 worlds voted to form the Federation. Earth was named first among equals, not rulers, but guides for the new galactic order. 20 years later, a Varathi historian named Krell, the same rebel who had once fought beside Commander Junho, wrote the definitive history of the war. The Conquered never understood that humanity's deadliness came not from their weapons, but their ideas. They offered the galaxy something it had never seen before: the chance for every species to stand as equals. Freedom, once offered, cannot be unlearned. The Galactic Federation now includes 123 worlds. The blue-skinned, species that once ruled as the Concorde, are members too. Their society transformed. And Earth, still first among equals, continues to teach the galaxy that true strength lies not in domination, but in cooperation. Initiate response. With those 2 words, the trap was sprung. Across the solar system, automated platforms hidden in the asteroid belt powered up. These platforms, disguised as mining equipment, revealed their true nature. Weapon systems activated. Engines fired. The Concorde fleet, expecting an easy victory, found itself surrounded as hundreds of small Earth vessels decloaked. These ships were smaller than the Concorde vessels, but they were fast and heavily armed. his recruits during their first training session. "We strike weaknesses, not strengths." The weakness today was overconfidence. The Concord never expected attacks on their home territories. Their security was designed to fight large armies, not small strike teams. Junho gave the signal. Across the road, hidden Varathi activated the electromagnetic pulse device the humans had provided. The convoy stopped instantly as their systems failed. The raid took less than 10 minutes. The confused Concord guards found themselves surrounded by Varathi rebels who seemed to appear from nowhere. The convoy's cargo, advanced weapons bound for the front lines, was quickly transferred to hidden vehicles. By the time Concord reinforcements arrived, Junho and the rebels were gone, leaving behind only a small human flag planted on the lead transport. Similar scenes played out across a dozen Concord worlds. On the ice planet Thrax, human-trained Thraxian rebels sabotaged the planet's main communication array. On Mindari, the Concord's agricultural center, resistance fighters redirected food shipments to starving populations instead of Concord military bases. The Concord High Command was baffled. They had prepared for traditional warfare, massive fleet battles, and planetary invasions. Instead, they found their communication systems hacked, their supply chains disrupted, and their propaganda networks broadcasting evidence of their own atrocities against subject species. Supreme Leader Draktul smashed another console in frustration. "How are these primitives infiltrating our secure networks? How are they turning our own people against us?" His advisors had no answers. The Concord model of warfare hadn't changed in 1,000 years. They conquered through overwhelming force, not subtlety. Meanwhile, aboard the diplomatic vessel New Horizon, Ambassador Hyjin welcomed representatives from Xantara, a mineral-rich world that had been under Concord control for 3 centuries. "The Free Systems Alliance offers full membership with equal voting rights," Hyjin explained to the tall, crystalline Xantaran delegates. "You keep 90% of your world's resources, with 10% contributed to the Alliance's common defense. Your people will have free movement rights throughout Alliance space, and we will help rebuild infrastructure the Concord has neglected." The Xantarans were suspicious at first. The Concord had always demanded 60% of their world's resources. But after 3 days of negotiations and calls to other worlds that had already joined the Alliance, they signed the agreement. The Xantarans departed. Hyjin's assistant looked at the star map showing Alliance territory. "That's the 5th world this month. We now control or have alliances with almost half the former conquered worlds." Hyjin nodded, studying the map. "And 8 more have declared neutrality. The Concord is shrinking day by day." "How are they reacting?" the assistant asked. "Poorly," Hyjin said with a small smile. "They keep sending massive fleets to crush our main forces, but we refuse to engage them directly. By the time they reach their targets, we've already moved on, and another world has joined us." Later that week, Hyjin addressed the Alliance Council, a gathering of representatives from all 23 member worlds. The meeting room was designed to accommodate many different species. Some sat in water tanks, others needed higher gravity sections, and a few floated in special anti-gravity fields. "The Conquered leadership still can't understand how they're losing to what they call primitives," Hyjin reported. "Their latest communication describes us as temporary rebels who will soon be crushed." A Varathi representative waved his tentacles. And what humans had learned was laughter. "They've been saying that for a year." Hyjin nodded. "They still think size equals strength. They cannot comprehend that adaptability beats might. While they build bigger warships, we build stronger alliances. While they threaten, we offer partnership." The war was entering its 2nd year, and though much fighting remained, the outcome was becoming clear. The Conquered, for all its power, had forgotten how to face a real challenge. And humanity, the galaxy's newest spacefaring species, was teaching a lesson to its oldest empire. The blue-white planet of Conquered Prime hung in space, surrounded by more than 1,000 warships. This was the Concord's capital world, home to the species that had ruled the galaxy for over 3,000 years. Now, it was their last stronghold. The Concorde had assembled every remaining ship in a desperate last stand. Their once mighty empire had shrunk to just 11 loyal worlds. The rest had either joined the Alliance or declared neutrality. Aboard the Earth flagship Defiance, Admiral Sun Wu studied the enemy formation. The command center was quiet, each officer focused on their task. The Alliance fleet consisted of ships from 27 different species, all following Earth's battle plans. Their defense grid is exactly where our intelligence said it would be, reported Officer Minji. They've concentrated their forces around the capital city. Sun Wu nodded. Begin broadcast on all frequencies. The communications officer opened a channel to the Conquered fleet. Sun Wu's face would now be appearing on screens throughout the enemy ships. This is Admiral Sun Wu of the Free Systems Alliance, he said calmly. Your empire has fallen. Your subject worlds have chosen freedom. Surrender now. We guarantee safety for all civilians and fair treatment for military personnel. For a long moment there was no response. Then a blue face appeared on the main screen. Supreme Leader Draktul himself. Never, he shouted, his four eyes blinking rapidly in anger. We would rather die than submit to primitives. The Conquered has ruled for 3,000 years. We will rule for 3,000 more. Sun Wu sighed. As you wish, he replied sadly. He turned to his tactical officer. Implement Operation Sunbreak. Across the Alliance fleet, ships began to move in precise formations. Unlike previous human victories, this one would not be won through stealth or guerrilla tactics. This was to be a direct confrontation, a demonstration that the Alliance could win even when playing by the Conquered's rules. The battle was swift and decisive. Human forces, supported by their allies, dismantled the Conquered defenses with surgical precision. The Conquered ships fought bravely but without coordination. Years of easy victories had made them forget the art of adapting during battle. When a group of Alliance ships took damage from a surprise weapon, they immediately changed tactics. When the Concorde tried to divide the Alliance forces, they found their enemies communicating faster and more effectively than they could. After just 4 hours, the space around Conquered Prime was filled with floating debris and disabled Conquered vessels. The defensive grid was down. The mighty Conquered, which had ruled the galaxy before humans had even discovered fire, had fallen. Supreme Leader Draktul was captured trying to escape in a small ship. When brought before Admiral Sun Wu, he expected execution. Instead, the human merely had him confined to comfortable quarters to await trial. All units engage according to plan, Sun Wu ordered. Focus fire on their command ships. The battle began. Earth's ships moved in coordinated patterns, attacking and retreating, never staying in one place long enough to be targeted. The Concorde fleet tried to form a defensive position, but they were already surrounded. In the asteroid belt, railguns fired massive projectiles at incredible speeds. The Conquered shields, designed to stop energy weapons, struggled against these simple kinetic attacks. Earth scientists had guessed correctly. The aliens relied too much on advanced technology and had forgotten the effectiveness of basic physics. Their flagship is trying to retreat, reported Jinho. Should we pursue? No, Sun Wu replied. Let them run. Focus on the vessels that are still fighting. The battle lasted less than 6 hours. When it ended, the mighty Concorde fleet had been reduced to debris and captured vessels. Earth had lost ships too, but far fewer than expected. The Concorde's technology was advanced, but their tactics were predictable. They had not fought a real war in centuries. Sun Wu walked through the corridor of the captured Concorde flagship. The alien metal felt strange under his feet. 6 armed guards accompanied him. They stopped at a door with strange symbols. This is the Admiral's quarters, translated young Mi, the xenolinguist who had studied the Conquered language for the past 3 months. The door opened. Inside, the Conquered Admiral sat at a desk. He was larger than the other aliens they had seen, with darker blue skin and ceremonial markings on his face. Do you speak our language? Sun Wu asked. The alien admiral stared with his 4 eyes. Yes. Your primitive translation devices are unnecessary. Sun Wu nodded. Good. Then understand this clearly. One of your ships will be allowed to return. It carries footage of this battle and a message. We accept your declaration of war. The alien's eyes blinked in different patterns. You cannot win against the conquered. We control 37 worlds. You have one. Sun Wu smiled slightly. Today you brought 200 ships to conquer us. Now those ships are destroyed or captured. How many more can you lose before your other worlds start to question your strength? The alien did not respond. The ship we're releasing will jump to hyperspace in 2 hours, Sun Wu continued. You have until then to select its crew and prepare your report to your leaders. Choose wisely what you tell them. As Sun Wu turned to leave, the alien admiral spoke again. Why are you letting any of us go? It is not logical. Sun Wu paused at the door. Because we want them to know exactly what happened here. Fear is a powerful weapon, Admiral. Today, for the first time, the conquered will feel fear. The Great Hall of the Galactic Conquered Assembly was a massive dome with seating for all 37 member species. At the center stood a raised platform where the Supreme Council sat. Today, that platform was in chaos. Impossible, shouted Supreme Leader Drak Tool, his blue skin turning almost purple with rage. These humans achieved spaceflight barely a century ago. He threw the data pad across the room. It clattered against the wall but continued playing the footage. Concord, warships exploding, Earth vessels moving with impossible precision, and finally, the human admiral delivering his message. We accept your declaration of war. The 5 other members of the Supreme Council watched in silence. They had never seen Drak Tool lose control like this. For thousands of years, the Concord had expanded without serious resistance. Smaller civilizations either joined willingly or were conquered. This defeat was unprecedented. The footage must be fake, suggested Council Member Zith. A primitive trick. Admiral Vex, the military commander who had replaced the disgraced admiral, captured by the humans, shook his head. The footage is real. We lost contact with the entire fleet. Only the vessel carrying this recording returned. In a quiet corner of the assembly building, Intelligence Director Ha-Jun Lee watched the unfolding chaos on his private screen. He looked like any other high-ranking Concord official. His skin had been surgically altered to match their blue. Coloration and implants changed his eye structure. For 27 years he had lived among them, rising through their ranks, sending occasional reports back to Earth. Now, as the Concord leaders panicked, he quietly transmitted new information. Several subjugated species had already reached out to him, sensing an opportunity in the Concord's weakness. The Vorathi, a species that had been servants of the Concord for centuries, had offered intelligence on supply routes. The Tellarites were willing to sabotage Concord weapons factories. The list grew longer each hour. Ha-Jun knew his cover wouldn't last much longer. The Concord would start looking for spies soon. But he needed to stay just a little longer to attend one last meeting. 3 days later, an emergency session of the full Concord Assembly was called. Representatives from all 37 worlds gathered to discuss the human threat. Supreme Leader Drak Tool had composed himself and now spoke with cold determination. This human resistance will be crushed, he announced. We are mobilizing our full military might. 10,000 ships will reduce Earth to ash. The assembly chamber filled with sounds of approval. Many species had never even seen a human, and simply followed the Supreme Council's lead. Suddenly, the massive communication array in the center of the hall activated without authorization. The face of a human woman appeared, projected 30 feet tall above the assembly. Guards rushed to shut down the system, but their controls were locked. Greetings, Galactic Conquered, the woman said calmly. I am Ambassador Minji of Earth. The chamber fell silent. Even Drak Tool was too surprised to speak. We never wanted war, Minji stated. But while you conquered peaceful races, humans spent millennia fighting ourselves, perfecting warfare. We've formed the Free Systems Alliance with those you've oppressed. Join us or stand aside. Ha-Jun watched from his seat, fighting to keep his face neutral while pride filled his chest. The plan was working. Earth was speaking not just to the Concord leaders but to all the species at once. species that had been conquered, that lived under Concord rule but had never chosen it. "You lie," Draktul finally found his voice. "No subjugated species would dare join you." Minji smiled. "Perhaps you should ask them yourself." The projection changed, showing representatives from 12 different species, each announcing their planet's decision to join the Free Systems Alliance. Some were species even the conquered thought were loyal. When the transmission finally ended, the assembly erupted into chaos. Some representatives demanded immediate military action. Others called for negotiation. A few quietly slipped away, heading for private communication chambers to contact their homeworlds. The conquered leadership laughed dismissively, calling the alliance a temporary rebellion by primitive species. They did not understand that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't technology but inspiration. As the meeting dissolved into arguments, Hajun sent his final transmission to Earth. Phase 3 complete. Cover compromised. Extraction needed. Then he quietly made his way toward the pre-arranged escape route, where a Varathi ship waited to smuggle him out. The war had just begun, but already the galaxy was changing. Species that had been silent for centuries were finding their voices, and Earth, the youngest civilization in the conquered, was leading them. Commander Junho crouched in the purple mud of Varathi Prime, his camouflage suit changing color to match the alien terrain. Behind him, 20 Varathi rebels waited silently. Their bodies looked somewhat like Earth octopuses, but with 6 limbs instead of 8, and they moved on land with surprising speed. "The supply convoy passes this point in 5 minutes, Junho whispered to Krell, the Varathi leader. "Remember, we only target the weapons and communication equipment. No unnecessary casualties." Krell bobbed his eye stalks in agreement. 6 months ago, he had been a factory worker. Now he led 200 fighters. The human training methods were unlike anything the Varathi had seen before. In the distance, the low hum of conquered transport vehicles grew louder. The convoy appeared around the bend in the road. 5 heavily armored transports with 2 guard vehicles at front and back. "We don't fight like the Concord," Junho had told. He had found references in the oldest texts to a mysterious force that had threatened all intelligent life. But those references were fragmented, as if deliberately erased. Not disappeared, Admiral Lee corrected. Separated. Deliberately. She touched her control pad, and a new image appeared on the screen. It showed ancient star maps and what appeared to be a treaty document. 500 years ago, humanity faced a threat we couldn't defeat alone, Lee explained. A non-biological intelligence that spread through space like a virus, infiltrating communications and turning species against each other. Sook nodded. Our archives mention something similar, a shadow in the systems that caused distrust and conflict. Together, our ancestors found a way to contain this entity, Lee continued. But the cost was separation. Humanity agreed to leave this region of space, traveling outward while the early Confederation species would develop inward. But why forget each other? Tyke asked. Because knowledge was dangerous, Tay answered. The entity worked through information networks. The less each side knew about the other, the safer both would be. Over generations, humans became myths to you, Admiral Lee said, and the Confederation became legend to us. Only a few kept the true history alive, waiting for the day when it would be safe to reunite. Ambassador Sook's face showed sudden alarm. If this ancient enemy is returning, manipulating both sides, Admiral Lee nodded grimly. Then the separation failed, and this attack was just the beginning of its attempt to prevent us from standing together again. Tyke looked from the human admiral to the Confederation ambassador. What do we do now? We find the truth, Sook said firmly. All of it. Before this ancient enemy pushes us into a war that would destroy everything. The great hall shone with golden light. Thousands of beings from across the stars filled every seat and standing space. This was the largest gathering in Confederation history. Tyke stood near the front, his 4 eyes blinking with excitement. 1 year had passed since the humans had appeared. 1 year of learning, sharing, and uncovering the truth about their shared past. The ancient enemy, a collective intelligence that existed in the spaces between stars, had nearly destroyed both civilizations 5 centuries ago. Only by separating and allowing knowledge of each other to fade into legend had they survived. Now they would face this enemy together. High Counselor Juan walked slowly to the center platform. The old leader represented the oldest confederation, species. His gray skin wrinkled with age, but his voice remained strong as he addressed the crowd. "Today marks the beginning of a new era," Juan announced. "The Earth Alliance formally joins the Confederation, bringing with them knowledge, strength, and the missing chapters of our shared history." Screens around the hall showed crowds gathering. On all 13 Confederation worlds, billions watched this historic moment. Admiral Lee stepped forward in her formal uniform. New symbols of both the Alliance and Confederation decorated her shoulders. She carried herself with dignity that commanded respect from everyone present. "On behalf of humanity," she said, "I extend our hand in friendship, as was always meant to be." The two leaders signed the treaty document. Cheers erupted throughout the hall. Species that once thought humans were just scary bedtime stories now welcomed them as equals. Humans who had kept the Confederation as secret knowledge for generations now openly embraced their ancient partners. Tyke watched with pride. His lifelong belief in human existence had been vindicated beyond his wildest dreams. Now he served as the head of the new Joint Historical Commission, working to restore the full truth of their shared past. As the ceremony reached its conclusion, a sharp alarm cut through the celebration. Red lights flashed across the ceiling. The cheers died instantly, replaced by confused murmurs. All eyes turned to the massive display screen at the front of the hall. It showed the outer sensor network, the ring of detection equipment at the edge of charted space. "They're coming," Tyke whispered, his voice barely audible. Just as the prophecies foretold, the screen showed vast, dark ships emerging from the empty space between galaxies. They moved in patterns that seemed wrong to the eye, as if they existed partly in another dimension. Their surfaces absorbed light rather than reflected it. The ancient enemy had returned. High Counselor Juan turned to Admiral Lee. No words were needed. Both leaders immediately activated emergency protocols. The celebration hall transformed into a command center as panels opened in the walls revealing communication equipment. Within hours, a combined fleet assembled near the edge of Confederation space. Sleek human warships, built from centuries of fighting for survival, flew alongside the elegant vessels of the Confederation. The humans brought their strength and military experience. The Confederation contributed their deep knowledge of space and advanced biological technology. For the first time in recorded history, the galaxy stood truly united. On the bridge of the flagship New Dawn, Admiral Lee and Ambassador Suk stood side by side. The ship represented the best of both civilizations, human military technology with Confederation navigation systems. Around them, human and Confederation crew worked together at different stations. Tyke managed the historical database, searching for any information about the enemy's weaknesses. The legend said humans would return when they were most needed, Suk said quietly, watching the enemy fleet grow larger on the screen. "Perhaps that's why we were kept apart," Lee replied. "So we could each develop what the other would need for this moment." The enemy had nearly destroyed them before by turning them against each other. It had used fear and miscommunication as weapons. But now, with truth restored and alliance formed, they stood ready. "All ships report ready, Admiral," said the communications officer. Lee looked at Suk, who nodded. Together, they gave the order to advance. "This is Admiral Lee of the Joint Fleet. All vessels move to attack Formation Alpha. Remember your training. Remember what we fight for." The massive fleet moved as one toward the darkness. Thousands of ships from 13 Confederation species and dozens of human colonies flew together. Their lights pushed back against the unnatural darkness of the enemy vessels. Tyke felt strangely calm as the distance closed. The prophecies he had studied all his life had spoken of this moment, when legends would unite to face the shadow between stars. "Begin transmission of the disruption signal," Lee ordered. The combined knowledge of human and Confederation science had created a weapon the enemy wouldn't expect, a signal that could break its connection to our reality. As the first shots were fired across the void, Admiral Lee spoke quietly. "Today we write a new legend," she said, "one that our children will tell not with fear, but with pride." The guardian species and their allies flew together into battle, united at last against the threat that had once divided them.